Imagine this is you, and you're given a choice. Sit alone in a quiet room for 15 minutes with nothing but your thoughts, or press a button that gives you a painful electric shock. What do you choose? If you're like 67% of American men in a groundbreaking University of Virginia study, you'd rather shock yourself than spend time alone with your mind. One participant even shocked himself 190 times rather than sit quietly. We'd literally rather hurt ourselves than be alone with who we are. We hate our true selves. But here's what's insane. The greatest minds in history, from Einstein to Tesla, from Bill Gates to Warren Buffett, all understood a profound secret that most people are running from. Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century German philosopher, put it perfectly. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free. In fact, most people are so addicted to distraction that they won't even make it through the first 5 minutes of this video. They'll click away the moment their minds start craving stimulation. But you're not most men. You're going to stay through the whole 20 minutes and explore why solitude is absolutely essential for any man who wants to unlock his true potential. Schopenhauer told a parable that perfectly captures the human condition. Imagine porcupines on a freezing winter day. They huddle together for warmth, but their sharp quills prick each other, so they move apart. But then they get cold again, so they come back together only to hurt each other once more. They keep doing this dance until they find the perfect distance, close enough for some warmth, far enough to avoid getting hurt. This is what Schopenhauer called the porcupine dilemma, and it explains everything about modern relationships. We desperately want connection, but the closer we get, the more we hurt each other with our flaws, our needs, and our expectations. So we settle for what Schopenhauer called politeness and good manners, a safe, sanitized distance that gives us just enough warmth but blocks any real intimacy. Sound familiar? Think about your last relationship. How many arguments started because you were too close? How many times did you retreat to your phone, your work, or your hobbies just to get some space? Modern neuroscience backs this up. Researchers at McGill University found that lonely people's brains actually become hypersensitive to social threats, making them interpret neutral interactions as hostile. But here's what Schopenhauer knew that most people miss. The problem isn't other people. The problem is that we don't know how to be alone. We're so desperate to escape ourselves that we'll accept shallow connections over authentic solitude. Walk into any American suburb and you'll find them. Man caves, basements, and garages converted into shrines of masculinity. Big screen TVs, leather recliners, sports memorabilia, and that no women allowed vibe. The man cave industry is worth billions, and shows like DIY Network's Man Caves have turned male solitude into a marketable commodity. But here's what's fascinating. Modern sociology research shows that man caves aren't really about masculinity. They're about emotional regulation. Dr. Mariam Barak's study, Man Caves and Masculinity, found that these spaces allow men to display their unique identities, relax, and even reflect on their life goals away from the pressures of work and domestic responsibilities. The man cave is America's crude approximation of what Schopenhauer was talking about. It's an attempt to create space for authentic selfhood. But most man caves fail at their deeper purpose because they're designed for distraction, not contemplation. They're filled with screens, gadgets, and noise. Everything except the one thing that would actually help: silence. Schopenhauer would look at a typical man cave and see a grown man afraid of his own mind, surrounding himself with toys to avoid the real work of self-discovery. The beer fridge and gaming setup aren't tools for growth, they're barriers against it. Modern neuroscience has vindicated Schopenhauer in ways he never could have imagined. When we're alone and unstimulated, something remarkable happens in our brains. The default mode network DMN activates. This network, discovered only in recent decades, is crucial for self-reflection, memory consolidation, and creative insight. Studies published in Nature Reviews Neuroscience show that the DMN is most active during what researchers call rest periods, moments when we're not focused on the external world. This is when our brains consolidate memories, process emotions, and make connections between disparate ideas. It's literally when breakthrough thinking happens. Einstein understood this instinctively. He said, "The monotony and solitude of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind." Einstein made it a habit to take long walks alone, lie on his back staring at the ceiling, and spend hours in what others might call doing nothing. His theory of relativity was born during those solitary moments. Nikola Tesla put it even more bluntly: be alone. That is the secret of invention. Be alone. That is when ideas are born. The mind is sharper and keener in seclusion and uninterrupted solitude. The research is staggering. Studies show that people who practice healthy solitude demonstrate enhanced creativity by up to 41%, improved problem-solving abilities, better emotional regulation and stress management, increased self-awareness and authenticity, and stronger relationships. Paradoxically, time alone makes us better partners. Bill Gates, one of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, institutionalized this principle. He takes Think Weeks twice a year, 7 days alone in a cabin with nothing but books and his thoughts. Some of Microsoft's biggest strategic decisions came from these periods of solitude. Warren Buffett spends 80% of his day reading and thinking alone, calling it the foundation of his investment success. But here's where most people get it wrong. Schopenhauer wasn't advocating for isolation or misanthropy. He made a crucial distinction between solitude and loneliness, a distinction that modern psychology has validated. Loneliness is involuntary. It's the painful feeling that you're disconnected from others, even when people are around. Brain scans show that loneliness activates the same regions as physical pain. It's your brain's alarm system saying something is wrong. That's why people choose to take even an electric shock rather than being alone. Solitude is chosen. It's the deliberate decision to be alone for growth, reflection, and authenticity. Neuroimaging studies show that chosen solitude activates brain regions associated with creativity, self-reflection, and emotional well-being. Schopenhauer practiced what he called enlightened solitude. He didn't retreat from the world because he hated people. He retreated so he could engage with the world more authentically. His daily routine was methodical: morning writing, afternoon walks alone, evenings reading philosophy, no small talk, no social obligations that didn't serve his deeper purpose. This isn't antisocial behavior, but rather the highest form of social contribution. Think about it. Every great innovation, every profound work of art, every breakthrough idea came from someone who spent significant time alone with their thoughts. The monk in his cell, the inventor in his workshop, the writer in her study. Solitude is where human excellence is forged. The University of Virginia electric shock study revealed something terrifying about modern consciousness. We've become so uncomfortable with our own minds that we'll choose pain over introspection. But why? Schopenhauer would argue it's because most people's inner lives are chaotic, undeveloped wastelands. We've spent so much time consuming other people's thoughts, social media, news, and entertainment, that we've forgotten how to generate our own. Consider the average man. He wakes up to his phone, scrolls through social media, listens to podcasts during his commute, sits in meetings all day, comes home to Netflix, and falls asleep to YouTube videos. When is he ever alone with his thoughts? When does he get to discover who he actually is beneath all that external input? The answer is never, and that's exactly how the system wants it. A man who knows himself is dangerous to consumer culture. He can't be manipulated by advertising. He doesn't need to buy things to define his identity. He makes decisions based on his authentic values, not social pressure. Schopenhauer predicted this. He saw how society was becoming a machine for preventing self-knowledge. He wrote, "We can only be entirely ourselves as long as we are alone. Therefore, whoever does not love solitude also does not love freedom. For only when we are alone are we free." So how do you break free from this cycle? How do you develop what Schopenhauer called the love of solitude? 1. Start with micro-solitude. Just 10 to 15 minutes a day of complete silence. No phone, no music, no distractions. Sit with your thoughts and observe them without judgment. This is harder than it sounds. Your mind will resist like a wild animal caged behind steel bars. That resistance is exactly what needs to be faced. 2. Walk without headphones. Schopenhauer was famous for his daily walks through Frankfurt. Modern research shows that walking in silence enhances creativity and problem-solving abilities. Your best ideas will come during these walks, guaranteed. 3. Create a solitude practice. Designate specific times for reflection. Early morning works best, before the world starts demanding your attention. Read philosophy, journal your thoughts, or simply sit in contemplation. 4. Embrace boredom. When you feel the urge to grab your phone, resist it. Boredom is the gateway to creativity. It's your mind's way of saying, "I'm ready to create something new." Don't short-circuit this process with artificial stimulation. 5. Study the masters. Read Schopenhauer, Thoreau, and Marcus Aurelius. See how great minds throughout history have used solitude for growth. You're not just being antisocial, but rather joining a tradition of human excellence. America actually has a rich tradition of productive solitude, though we've largely forgotten it. Henry David Thoreau spent 2 years alone at Walden Pond, not as an escape from society, but as a laboratory for authentic living. His famous words, "I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone." Thoreau's experiment proved that solitude isn't about avoiding responsibility. Rather, it's about taking ultimate responsibility for your own development. At Walden, he grew his own food, built his own shelter, and most importantly, cultivated his own thoughts. The result, some of the most influential writing in American literature and philosophy that inspired everyone from Gandhi to Martin Luther King Jr. This is what Schopenhauer meant when he talked about the necessity of solitude for great men. Not because great men are antisocial, but because greatness requires the kind of deep self-knowledge that only comes from sustained periods of reflection. Here's the paradox that drives people crazy. The more comfortable you become with solitude, the better your relationships become. Schopenhauer understood this intuitively, and modern psychology has proven it empirically. Research shows that people who practice healthy solitude demonstrate higher emotional intelligence, better conflict resolution skills, and more authentic communication in relationships. Why? Because they've learned to regulate their emotions independently instead of expecting others to do it for them. Think about the neediest person you know. They can't be alone for 5 minutes without anxiety. They need constant validation, entertainment, and emotional support from others. Now think about the most attractive people you know. They're comfortable in their own skin. They have interesting thoughts and hobbies, and they don't desperately need your approval. Schopenhauer's porcupine dilemma resolves when you no longer need others for emotional warmth. You generate your own heat through self-knowledge and authentic purpose. Then you can get close to people not out of desperation, but out of genuine choice and mutual growth. Every major breakthrough in human history came from someone spending significant time alone with their thoughts. This isn't coincidence, it's causation. Einstein's miracle year of 1905, when he published 4 papers that revolutionized physics. He was working in relative isolation at the Swiss Patent Office, with hours each day for uninterrupted reflection. Tesla's alternating current system that powers the modern world developed during his solitary work periods, often going days without speaking to another person. Steve Jobs' most innovative periods coincided with his times of intense solitude. walking alone for hours, sitting in empty conference rooms, and retreating to his minimalist home office. The pattern is clear. Groundbreaking innovation requires groundbreaking solitude. You can't think original thoughts when your mind is constantly filled with other people's ideas. Modern neuroscience explains why. The brain's creative networks require what researchers call cognitive rest. Periods when external stimulation is minimized and internal processing can flourish. This only happens in sustained solitude. Schopenhauer's most radical insight was linking solitude to freedom. Most people think freedom means having lots of options, but Schopenhauer knew better. True freedom is independence from the need for external validation and stimulation. Think about your daily life. How much of it is shaped by what others think? Your career choices, your weekend plans, even your thoughts. How much is authentically yours versus socially conditioned? A man who loves solitude becomes genuinely free because he develops an internal locus of control. His happiness doesn't depend on others' approval. His sense of purpose comes from within. His entertainment is self-generated through reflection, reading, and contemplation. This is what terrifies most people about solitude: the responsibility. When you're alone with yourself, you can't blame others for your problems. You can't distract yourself from difficult truths. You have to face who you really are, not who you pretend to be on social media. But this confrontation with reality is what makes you powerful. You become like Warren Buffett, who said, "I can buy anything I want, but I can't buy time." Time alone with your thoughts becomes your most valuable commodity because it's where authentic self-creation happens. Let's get specific. Here's how to build a Schopenhauerian solitude practice that will transform your life. Phase 1, digital detox, week 1 to 2. Turn off all notifications except calls. Designate phone-free zones in your home. Replace mindless scrolling with reading actual books. Take 1 meal per day in complete silence. Phase 2, micro retreats, week 3 to 4. Start with 15 minutes of daily silence. Take walks without headphones. Write in a journal every morning. Practice saying no to social obligations that don't align with your values. Phase 3, deep solitude, month 2. Schedule weekly solo dates with yourself. Read philosophy and challenging books. Develop a hobby that requires sustained concentration. Practice meditation or contemplative prayer. Phase 4, integration, month 3+. Take quarterly weekend retreats alone. Make major life decisions only after periods of solitary reflection. Cultivate friendships with others who value depth over superficial socializing. Become someone others seek out for wisdom, not just entertainment. The majority of men will never do this work, and they will also click away from the video right here. They'll continue shocking themselves, literally and metaphorically, rather than spend time with their own minds. They'll fill their man caves with distractions, their schedules with obligations, and their thoughts with other people's opinions. But you're not most men. You understand that in a world obsessed with connection, the most radical act is learning to be alone. Not lonely, alone. Present with yourself, comfortable in your own consciousness, and free from the desperate need for external validation. Schopenhauer spent his life as what he called a lone traveler, and it made him one of history's most influential philosophers. His ideas shaped everyone from Freud to Nietzsche to Tolstoy. His words still resonate 160 years after his death because they came from a place of authentic solitude, not social conformity. The path isn't easy. Your mind will resist. Society will question you. Friends will try to pull you back into the comfortable numbness of constant stimulation. But if you persist, you'll discover what every great man throughout history has known. The person who can be alone is the person who can do anything. Your thoughts become clearer, your decisions become wiser, your relationships become deeper, your work becomes more meaningful. Your life becomes truly your own. As Schopenhauer wrote, Solitude is to the mind what fasting is to the body, essential medicine. The question isn't whether you need solitude. The question is whether you have the courage to embrace it. The choice is yours. Keep shocking yourself with endless distractions, or step into the power of authentic solitude. Choose wisely. Your future self is watching. We can be ourselves only when we are alone. Anyone who wants to be free, therefore, should not love solitude, for only in solitude are we really free. Arthur Schopenhauer. Start now. Put down your phone. Find a quiet space. Sit with yourself for 15 minutes. Discover what it means to be truly alone and truly free.